meeting live on Facebook. Yay!
Yeah.
Ana-Christina and Kesha. We are sharing tools of hope with the Resilience Builders. Today we are having a serious conversation with a clown. So Kesha, tell us, what's your day job?
So during the day, I'm a supervisor at a 911 center in Northern Virginia.
Nice. And your off the clock job?
I am a professional clown, face painter, balloon artist. Mm-hmm.
Nice. I love it. And so what we wanted to do is, you know, why we got together, I said, please, could we talk on the phone? I love your attitude. And you know how you can meet people. There's some groups that you go into on Facebook and it just feels a certain way. There's other groups, and I'm going to say in my experience, they're relatively rare. There's other groups that you can walk into just as if you walk into a room and the feeling is totally different. 9-1 Wonder Women, who was founded by Sarah Weston, is one of those groups where you just walk in and you feel safe, you feel encouraged, you feel lifted up, supported. That's what Sarah has built, and that's where I met Kesha. Well, here's the bottom line, is she writes, I think you write posts every single morning.
Every morning I wake up and share something positive or inspirational or every morning.
And it's here's the thing. She goes, "Good morning, ladies." And it might be in regular font, but you can hear
right
coming through the greeting. Seriously, like straight up. So I said, I want to talk to this woman and let's get some hands-on. We talked a little bit. I do resilience, but here's the deal: is it's not about the 10,000 foot. Just be happy. Don't worry. Be happy.
Correct.
Let's figure out how to bounce back. Not just when you're doing good,
right?
But when you're going hard. So I thought, you know, just based on your comments in the group, I thought this is a person I want to get to know, and we want to just be able to share some of the tools that you've used, because my mind read is after 20 years in 911, you've heard a lot.
Correct.
A lot of darkness. There's a lot of wrong ways that can come out when we trap that inside of ourselves. There's a lot of wrong ways in your marriage, with your kids, in your health, with your personal development, even in your job. It can leak out and in the worst ways, right? What we actually want is to know, like, Kesha, what do you do? In other words, you told me earlier that it's a choice.
Correct.
To have a positive attitude, to have a good, decent attitude. Was there a turning point, or was it just this kind of like slow burn that created for you?
I think for me it was a slow progression, right? And I believe positivity is deliberate, right? You have to make sure that you are purposefully being positive, you know. And I mean, obviously life is not all, you know, rainbows and roses, but I mean, you decide how you react to a situation, right? So you can train your mind to be negative about something, or you can train your mind to be positive about something, because regardless of whatever situation you're in, there can always be a positive thing in that situation, or something that you can just be thankful for in a situation. But it's up to you to determine how you're going to deal with it, basically.
I love what you just said. You didn't just say to be thankful for the situation. And you didn't say there's never anything that you can be learning from. What you did say is you can learn and you can get something good out of a situation. Sometimes that's crazy hard to see.
It is. It really is.
Almost impossible to see. So how do you deal with that when there's just a crushing situation, either for you personally or professionally? There was something going on. How do you possibly find, you said two things, you either find something positive in it, something that you can, or you choose to be thankful in the midst of it. So how do you do this piece? How do you possibly find something positive within a horrific situation?
Well, I always look at the situation in its totality, right? Because sometimes we have a tendency to zoom in on just one particular part, and we don't look at the picture as a whole. So, I mean, I try to look at the picture as a whole and then try to uh, zoom into something that I can be positive about, you know. It's not always easy. There are some situations that are harder than others, but I tend not to dwell on things that I can't control.
Yeah. Yeah. So without sharing any details, what would be a couple of examples? Like, you don't need to
Uh,
give a lot of detail in what caused it or a lot of detail in the example, but how could you just a couple examples of how you would possibly find something positive in a difficult situation?
well, I mean, like for me, I mean, I've been married and divorced, right? So divorce is never an easy thing. But, you know, out of that divorce, okay, first of all, what happened in the situation? And what did I do? What did the other person do? And what changes can I do within myself to never let that occur again? You know,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's like I said, it's not always um automatic. Sometimes it's a slow process because sometimes we don't learn
Mhm.
from the things that we've been through, and we're going to repeat it again. So I notice too, like if there's certain things that are occurring to me over and over again, I always say to myself, what am I missing? Right. So I'm possibly missing something. And if you don't learn from a situation, you will repeat that situation.
So,
No shortcuts. There are no shortcuts, right? So
yeah.
you have to do the hard work. And anytime I feel like I'm trying to take a shortcut with anything, I always notice that I end up repeating it and like starting from ground zero. And I hate starting from ground zero.
Right?
So I try to do it right the first time.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that idea, I love what you said. I love what you kind of got your defiance up, right? Like what changes can I make to ensure that this never happens again?
Correct.
Instead of dwelling on it, what it sounds like is that you take an action. You ask
Mm-hmm.
a powerful question instead of dwelling on it. Oh, woe is me. This sucks. This person did this. This person did that. I'm this. I'm that. Making all these labels. It sounds like what you go to is you say, what can I do to make sure that we can do this different next time or
Correct.
way or whatever. So you talked about earlier before we hit the record button, you talked about how we need to nurture a different mindset. So the question for me is always, okay, we need to nurture it. How? How do you nurture it? That's always my big curiosity question. My resilience question is, how do you nurture your positivity and your not just positivity, that sounds kind of soft. How do you nurture your resilient mindset so that you can continue doing what it is that you were built to do?
Well, I mean, first, I mean, I reckon I try to be mindful of when I'm being negative, right? And
Ah,
change that behavior, right? Because whatever you feed yourself, whether it's by mouth or just by what you watch and whatever you take in, that's what you become, right? So even if you're in a situation, like say, for example, you're at work and you hear negative talk, and you continue to hear negative talk, you continue to take that in, it can affect you, right? So you can remove yourself from the situation, or you can say, hey, you can change the subject and let's talk about something else. But like I said before, you have to be deliberate about it, right? You have to be deliberate in what you take in. And like I said, sometimes there is no, I mean, just the nature of the job, there's going to be negativity and bad things. But what else can we do to turn this situation around? You know, sometimes it might be just getting up and taking a break, right? So you're in it right there, but what can I do to fix myself, to heal myself, to get out of this situation? And depending on where you're at and what you're doing, it might mean different things. So there's not just one thing per se that I do, but uh, a multitude of things that I do to make sure that I am in a good space.
so you're mindful.
Mm-hmm.
You're also mindful of the fact that whatever you take in, that's what you become.
Correct.
but with your eyes, with your ears, with your thoughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I love this idea of you have to be deliberate.
Mm-hmm.
Be deliberate. It's like, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm not going to do with whatever the situation is. It's kind of like standing on what you stand for, right?
Correct.
So cool. So what would be the one secret that you would share with women in all, and you know that I work with, I work not just with dispatchers, I work with dispatch, cops,
Mm-hmm.
EMS, fire, advocates. I work with a huge variety group of advocates because they're seeing the cases that you get a call on. They
Mm-hmm.
might be working with that victim or the survivors for years after you ever took that call because of that tragedy.
Right.
So it's kind of following the life of kind of the victim or the survivor.
Mm-hmm.
What is the one thing that you would share with these women in these roles, dealing with the darkness, on how to best stay resilient and positive, right? So that you can continue being that light in the darkness. What was the one thing? The one thing.
Well, I would say that you are not your circumstance. Whatever that circumstance it may be, you are not your circumstance. And at the end of the day, you have more power than you realize that you have, right? So you have power and control over yourself. And you determine what you're going to let affect you and what you're not going to let affect you. Again, like sometimes things happen and boom, we have a reaction. But you have to be deliberate about taking that breath and realizing, okay, this is affecting me in this way. And what am I going to do to change this? And like I said, depending on what it is, it could be different things. But you have to realize if something is affecting you negatively, you need to find a way to change the situation. You just really have to fine tune and pay attention to that. Like I said, it doesn't happen overnight. It was a slow progression for me, but I just realized like I am not my circumstance. What changes can I make? And it's always on you. It has nothing to do with anybody else because no one else is responsible for your happy, is what I say. You are responsible for your happy. And if you're looking for someone else, whether it be your partner, your job, whoever, your children, to provide happiness for you, you're barking up the wrong tree. You're responsible for you, and you're responsible for your happy, and you're responsible for your mind and the way you think about things. You might need some practice to get there, and it's always going to be a constant thing, that you have to be mindful of, but you do have to be mindful of it.
I love it. I love it. Kesha, thanks for spending a few minutes with us. I just think that the more that we can give tools, these actionable tools, right? A different way to think, a different way to ask a question in the middle of the circumstance instead of playing the victim or playing the
right.
Right? So it's deliberate, it's purposeful, and you are not your circumstances. You're responsible for your happy.
Mm-hmm.
Get to work into it. May or may not be instant, may or may not take a little bit, but you get to be responsible for that. So Kesha, thank you very much for joining us from Virginia. And thank you for what you do. Appreciate it. Thanks for sharing. This is Ana-Christina sharing tools of hope with the Resilience Builders. We share tools that help you get your life back so that you can continue to speak healing, continue to make a difference, and be the light in the darkness. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.
All
Bye.
right. Bye, everybody.